Hi, my name is Christina Caljé. I'm originally from New York City and have lived in Europe since 2010. I've been an entrepreneur since 2012 and am in the process of founding my third company. As a woman of color who's spent her entire career in male-dominated environments like finance and tech, underrepresentation is a theme that I'm unfortunately very familiar with. The root causes of the lack of women and people of color in entrepreneurial leadership positions is very complex, with contributing factors from both a societal and economic perspective. As we've heard today from our distinguished keynote speakers, the underlying issues that create barriers for women and people of color all center around access. Access to network, access to visibility, access to role models, and consequently access to funding. Thankfully, there's increasing attention to the underrepresentation as a problem, but I've found that particularly in the VC space, moral drive and evidential data around outperformance are just not enough. So during my debate remarks, I want to focus on some ideas for potential solutions to the funding imbalance for the European Parliament to consider. We need to cater to the priorities of investors and make it easy as possible for them to drive significant change in their sourcing and evaluation processes so that it can better serve women and POC founders that are often overlooked. What do investors care about? They care about lowering their portfolio risk and increasing their return on their investments. An economic incentive from the government would have more direct and immediate effect in this regard. For instance, a tax break for investors who put their money into startups of POC or female-founded companies, or a co-investment program whereby the government invests the same amount or a factor higher alongside the VC if the startup meets specific high-bar diversity criteria. We can already look to existing schemes focused on spurring innovation to serve as templates for both constructions, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Implementation of the more technical aspects of any tax-based incentive would need to be done on a local jurisdictional level, obviously. So I would see European Parliament's role more in setting best practices, for instance, drafting a template tax relief scheme that can be locally adapted by regional tax agencies. With the template, Parliament should focus on defining qualification criteria for the company receiving the funds, as well as criteria for the investor supplying the funds. And in cases where member states have successfully implemented a tax relief scheme, these case studies can be highlighted by European Parliament in a centralized knowledge resource for other member states to see and refer to as inspiration. As an example, though it's no longer in the EU, the United Kingdom has created the Enterprise Investment Scheme to boost innovation investment, and it's a tax relief scheme for qualifying UK investors to claim back up to 30% of the value of their investment in the form of income tax relief. It's been very successful in the goal of spurring innovation investment since its inception. And in considering the co-funding scheme, we can also refer to existing schemes for inspiration. Here in the Netherlands, the Dutch Growth Co-Investment Program was a scheme developed by the European Investment Fund and the Netherlands Investment Agency to support startups experiencing that second equity gap, where they move beyond the startup stage and into the growth phase of their life cycle. In this program, applications for the co-funding are submitted to the EIF fund, and investments are also dispatched from this fund, which totals 100 million euros. With both the tax relief and co-funding scheme types, Parliament could easily replicate aspects of existing schemes and repurpose for diversity focus, simply by swapping out the qualifying criteria. The key would be to redefine qualifying factors of target portfolio companies in order to incentivize investment in founding teams where company ownership and leadership reflect majority gender or ethnic diversity, instead of certain growth or innovation measures. And in my ideal world, the factor of co-investment will be higher for such diversity-focused co-investment schemes so that VCs are more advantaged to make use of these program funds than, say, a growth trajectory or innovation fund. But either way, with these tweaks, Parliament could easily create a template that can be repurposed for other member states. By focusing on the real priorities of VCs, namely de-risking their investments or increasing the return on their investments, they'll be better incentivized to do the extra work in sourcing and investing in underrepresented founders. Thank you, and I look forward to answering follow-up questions during the Q&A session.